Hi, this is Governor Asa Hutchinson. Everyone deserves an opportunity to engage in healthy, active lifestyles. As governor, I support initiatives that are helping Arkansas become a healthier state. A healthy Arkansas lowers medical costs, attracts industry, and more importantly, improves the quality of life for all of us. The first step in achieving a healthy, active Arkansas begins with knowledge and continues with personal responsibility. Together, Arkansas State University's College of Nursing and Health Professions and College of Media and Communication have teamed up to produce a series called Your State of Health. These programs will discuss the health issues facing our state and provide information on how you can take control of your health. Arkansas is a great place to live, work, and play. We can all be working together to help people to feel better about their lives, reduce healthcare costs, and be better as a state. Now let's start focusing on creating healthy, active lifestyle opportunities for everyone.
Welcome to another episode in our series, Your State of Health. Your State of Health is a series of programs designed to improve the health of Arkansans. Today's episode focuses on childhood wellness. Our guests today include 4 health professionals from the College of Nursing and Health Professions at Arkansas State University. Melanie Mata is an assistant professor of nursing. Pamela Lewis Kipkale is an assistant professor of occupational therapy. Joanna Cupp is an assistant professor of nutritional science. And Jessie Bricker is an assistant professor of occupational therapy. Welcome to the show. Melanie, we're going to start with you. Can you tell us about some emerging trends in childhood wellness?
Yes, probably within the past 20 years we have seen a huge emerging trend with childhood obesity, in which our First Lady, Michelle Obama, has actually made this her stance in regards to education. And part of that problem is with the increase of childhood obesity that we're seeing, it's just not the weight factor, it's all the other health conditions that are starting to be attributed to that. And one of the things that we're really starting to see within the past 20 years, in 1994, less than 20% of the children, less than 5% of the children who were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Now that trend now is up to 20%. So in type 2 diabetes is typically directly related to obesity. So not only with that, you're starting to see problems with hypertension that starts to develop related to that. You start seeing problems with depression that gets correlated with that, in addition to long-term joint issues in regards with mobility, depression, so those type of things. So this is starting to really increase in our society, and some stuff that, you know, as parents and as educators, we really need to take a look at.
Is there a population of children that are more prone to type 2 diabetes because of obesity?
There are some genetic links, in particular some American Indian populations, but typically what we have started to see a lot of is our decreased mobility that's within our society. So for an example, you know, a lot of us have grown up, or myself as a mother, we've had to put our kids into latchkey, into daycare as we've gone to work. There are very few states within our nation that actually have licensure restrictions in regards that these children have to have so much activity. So now we're increasing this sedentary type of lifestyle, which is starting to make a difference, and we're starting to see that. In addition, we're needing to increase our education, more than just about the activity, but what exactly, how should we educate the population? Should we educate these parents and these kids in regards to what healthy eating is, and how they can make those little small differences into their daily lifestyle?
And you talked about a sedentary lifestyle. So Pamela, what problems has new technology introduced us with this?
Well, nowadays kids are spending a lot more time watching television, being on their computers, on their smartphones, and they're just not getting out and moving the way that children used to. So basically, with all of this technology, you're seeing an increase of in the sedentary behaviors, and also children aren't playing it like they used to. So basically, technology is just impacting them, that they're not moving and getting exercise like they should.
So technology is obviously one of the main, contributors to this, but what are some other significant lifestyle choices that contribute to childhood wellness?
Well, like we said, lack of exercise. They're not getting outside and playing. Poor diet. There's more of a trend now to eat convenience foods and fast foods as opposed to home-cooked meals. Then you have lack of sleep. Kids are up playing on their computers, their smartphones, watching television, and they're just not getting the sleep that they used to. And there are lifestyle choices that kind of tie into all of this. We've got school activities. Kids have way more homework than they used to have, which also impacts sleep, and the sedentary behaviors that we've discussed. And just doing more just activities that don't include play.
Okay, and obviously how much you eat plays a big role in childhood wellness. How has pediatric portion sizes changed over the years?
They've definitely increased. Most of us were brought up with, you better clean your plate or there's no dessert for you. Also, the National Institute of Health has reported that portion sizes have doubled and even tripled. And also in the restaurants since the 1950s, they have almost quadrupled, and and that goes hand in hand with at home too. What we do out in at the restaurants, we usually bring home those trends as well. So
do you think parents are aware of what child portion sizes should be?
I do not think they're aware. No, not like they should be.
And how can we teach them what those are?
Well, there's lots of things you can do. The number one thing being educate yourself. I'm a big believer in getting the children involved with your planning, with the parents. Just learn the proper portion sizes. We're going to provide some little tips there later in the show. Choose to eat at least something from each of the 5 food groups: the vegetables, the fruits, the protein, your dairy, and grains, and then choose baked meats instead of fried meats. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Get active, make healthy fun. Drink water, don't drink the sodas. If you don't like water, there's plenty of things you can do now to infuse your water with your fruits and even vegetables. Practice it together, be active together, get outdoors as a family. And finally, if there's not fresh things, or maybe you waste food, get the frozen instead of the canned.
So what are some important portion sizes for parents and kids to remember?
Well, think about a piece of bread. It's going to be like the size of a CD case. Your fruits, and they should be more like a size of a baseball, a small baseball. Orange could be more like a tennis ball. Raisins, this is where people get in trouble. These should be more like a golf ball size, smaller portion. And then as far as the vegetables, potatoes or baked potatoes, common. This should be more of like a computer mouse size. I think in the restaurants are double this size most of the time. And then of course, small amounts of fat. Here we have a small piece of butter. And as far as protein, deck of cards, some people say the palm of your hand. So some of our palms are larger than others, so that's where we say the deck of cards comes in handy. That's about 3 ounces of meat. And also peanut butter is a item that we get in trouble with. This is 1 teaspoon, so just be mindful of that whenever you're spooning it out. So.
Okay, and a lot of us, I think one area we get in trouble in is snacking throughout the day. So what are some healthy options to reach for instead of just like a bag of potato chips?
Instead of potato chips, you can do snacks such as cucumbers, kale chips, fruit. If you're thinking for kids who like cereal and their natural snack is cereal, instead of just getting the cereal that have a lot of sugar, they can substitute oatmeal with dried fruit or fresh fruit in the oatmeal. Instead of grabbing that soda that has so much sugar, there's so many options. You've got different teas that are infused with different fruit flavorings, or you can infuse your water with fruit and vegetable flavorings. And even when you're baking, you can make substitutions such as applesauce instead of oil, honey and bananas instead of sugar in your things that you bake, like your cookies. So those are some options that we can go with.
Yeah, one of the things that I use is what Pamela talked about is we do a lot of kale chips in our house, and they're very easy to make. Kale is very inexpensive to buy. You can buy it organic with a bunch just for 99 cents. And so you just definitely want to make sure that you get your leaves off of the stem itself, kind of make sure it's dried out a little bit, put some salt and peppers, a little bit of oil, and you can put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes and they will come out very, very crispy. So it gives you that crunch like a potato chip, gives you a little bit of that salt, like a salty type of chip would, and they're very flavorful. And you know, I have two boys. I have a teenager and a 10-year-old, and they love them. So that's something that we've done in our home that's very inexpensive, and it's easy to do, and it's a great alternative.
And Jessie, I think you have some good sleep and hygiene related tips that parents really need to make sure that their children understand and know.
Yeah, so we know that there's a definite link between kids who stay up too late or maybe wake up a lot in the middle of the night, feeling very fatigued when they wake up in the morning, and that really reduces the amount of time that they feel like they can be physically active during the day. But we also know that kids who are physically active during the day sleep better. So those two things are definitely linked, and we want to make sure that parents know if kids are physically active, that's great. They should be every day for at least an hour, but we want to make sure that they're separating that physical activity from their nighttime routine and really just establishing what that nighttime routine should look like for a child. Make sure that your child has a dimly lit room. You know, turn off the overhead lights, have a small bedside lamp or something. Do some reading before bed, but not on a screen. And put away those Kindle readers and things that light up, iPads and things, and get out an old-fashioned book. Really spending some time in a dimly lit environment, doing something quiet and sedentary is important before a child goes to bed. And then make sure that your older children, who we kind of parent less directly, aren't spending their last night before a test cramming all night or doing some of those things, or staying up too late writing a paper for school. Help them to kind of prioritize so they don't end up in those situations, and they'll sleep better.
And is there certain hygiene things that we should definitely work into that morning routine or that afternoon or evening routine?
Smaller children definitely respond better when their nighttime routine is the same each and every night. A lot of us like to get in those, oh, well, it's Friday night. We don't have to get up early in the morning. Let's, throw the whole routine out the window so that we can go do this special event. And that's okay once in a while. But in large part, younger children under the age of 10 will respond better if they can maintain that same bedtime routine every single night. The routine itself will eventually become the thing that kind of cues their body to release that melatonin and help them to drift off to sleep. For other children, we find, especially as they get closer to those teenage years, they need a lot of sleep, a considerable amount of sleep. We kind of think as children get older, they need less sleep, and that's not really true. A teenager needs between 10 and 11 hours of sleep still, and so it's important to help them prioritize sleep, to help them get into those healthy routines. And then also, when they have the opportunity to sleep in on a Saturday morning, we don't allow them to sleep more than 2 or 3 hours past their normal wake-up time. Otherwise, it can really disrupt their circadian rhythm, which is that routine that your body gets in of sleep and wake cycle.
How does sleep deprivation play into childhood obesity?
Well, there is a definite link there. Many studies have actually shown, both for children and adults, there's a direct correlation between shortened sleep, not a sleep deprivation, but shorter hours of sleep every night, and increased weight. In fact, there was a study done in the UK in the 90s that demonstrated that children who had shortened sleep schedules at the age of 30 months, which is just about 2.5, there was a direct correlation between those children at 30 months having shortened sleep schedules and then obesity by the age of 7. And we've definitely seen an increased linkage along those lines. What's not clear is why. Some studies have pointed to lack of sleep creating hormonal imbalance in the hypothalamus, which is the part of the brain that regulates many of the body functions. People who have this hormonal imbalance typically crave those calorie-dense foods. They tend to overeat. In addition to that, you find that children who report being tired during the day, they have lower levels of physical activity, and we know that's a definite risk factor in terms of developing obesity.
And how has like the new technology that we've talked about, being on computers, being on phones, tablets, anything like that, how does that contribute to sleep deprivation?
Well, it's definitely become a huge part of our culture, and most families are reporting these days that their children under the age of 17 have access to not just one or two, but multiple devices in their bedrooms. We're talking about TVs, DVD players, e-readers, any type of LCD screen, which is that blue lit, backlit screen that we find on many of our technology pieces and devices today. And it's that LCD screen that really creates the problem when we're talking about lack of sleep. It's been shown in many studies that prolonged exposure, and especially exposure right before bed, will create a melatonin deprivation in the body. Melatonin is the chemical in your body naturally occurring that helps you to fall asleep. So in turn, we get sleep deprivation, and we're right back where we started with sleep deprivation causing problems with obesity.
And what are some tips for parents who have trouble, getting their kid to stop watching the TV or stop playing on the phone?
Sure.
What types of limits can they set to make sure that they're not on that all hours of the night?
Yeah, limits are incredibly important, and in fact, what they found is teenagers actually are at the most at risk for having this problem because they lack the judgment to know when it's okay to turn that off and we should be going to bed because we have 8 o'clock math class the next morning. And especially we need to help our teenagers make some good decisions about that. But definitely it's important for parents to realize the effect that screen time can have on their child's sleep habits and help their child to set some really good structure and routine around that so that they can turn those devices off at least an hour before the child goes to bed to try to get some dimly lit environment going before the child drifts off to sleep. That will actually help increase melatonin production and help the child sleep better through the night as well.
Okay. How are trends in education across America, but specifically in our state also, impacting obesity rates?
Sure. There's several things going on there. I think it's widely known that this is problematic, and it's not just in the state of Arkansas, but it is a nationwide epidemic that we're finding as increased weight in our kids. I think there is concern around that, but there's also concern around academic performance. And we had, the No Child Left Behind Act was kind of a critical component of this. And when that act was implemented in 2001 and just a bit before that, we saw a nationwide increase in core curricular standards. Anything that was tested, math, science, literacy, those core curriculum pieces became way more emphasized than physical education in the classroom. And as a result, we found, studies were coming out. Kindergarten teachers were reporting that their kindergarten classrooms were spending less than 15 minutes a day in physical education. For a 5-year-old, that's just not enough. And we've seen kind of a national trend going that direction. So as we've kind of come out of that No Child Left Behind Act, we are seeing more states start to implement standards around physical education requirements, and Arkansas is one of those. In the state of Arkansas, it's a requirement for our students to receive 90 minutes a week of physical education. The national recommendation is 150 minutes a week, so we're getting there, but that is an important part. The state of Arkansas also does regular BMI screenings as part of every student's educational experience, and those scores are reported back home to parents, so parents can become more aware of where their child stands in terms of weight, which is an important step forward. But we still are finding 1 in 3 of our students in the state of Arkansas are overweight, so we still have a little bit of a road to go.
And the difference between the 90 minutes that's mandated and the 150 that's recommended, how can parents try to fill in that gap?
Well, I think there's a variety of ways, and I think we've kind of pointed out some already, but the important part is to really place value on getting physically active, setting some limits and parameters around screen time, and really starting to focus on, you know, ways to get the family outdoors, ways to get physical activity back into just a regular family routine. I think it's easy to kind of lose sight of that, especially now that we have many households where there's a single parent, or there might be a household where both parents are working outside of the home. It becomes more and more difficult to kind of implement those things after the end of a long work day and a long school day, but I think it is important, and families should try to prioritize that.
Mm-hmm. And I know one of the main things we hear when we talk about people eating healthy is that it's just too expensive. So what's the impact of the cost of cooking a healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner at home versus fast foods or convenient foods?
Well, we all know that a home-cooked meal is going to be more nutritious for you and kind of, you know, lead to better health. But our reality is that most people don't have a lot of time, so they do the fast foods and convenience foods. And when you think about it, it's a lot cheaper to go and buy a bag of potato chips when you want a snack, or you can get 2 bags of potato chips that'll feed your whole family for the same cost that you can get just enough blueberries to feed one person for a snack. So the cost of eating healthy is quite a bit more, but when you think about it, your health is going to be a lot more important than the finances at that point. So just knowing that although it's cheaper, it's not healthier.
And are there other options, I guess, or tips, helpful links or anything like that that can help people get the food they need that provides the nutrition they need without spending so much money?
Well, you can do, you know, some families are doing cooperative cooking nowadays where, you know, instead of you providing all of it, you eat with your neighbors and everybody contribute a portion, which cuts down on price. Also, you know, growing your own vegetables. A lot of families say they don't have the time to do that, but if you can find the time to actually grow your own vegetables, it's going to be a lot healthier in the long run than going and just eating the fast foods and the convenience foods.
And it's another activity that you could do with your family, to get outside, but also it's really important to invest in your health in the long run, because it's very easy just to choose the convenience, but if you invest and take the time, you're going to live a healthier, longer life. So.
And you got to look at the complications. We're not just looking at childhood. We're looking at childhood obesity. That's what we're talking about. But we're looking at the long-term effects of this. We're looking at the development of atherosclerosis, which is the narrowing of the arteries, which is going to lead to your increased incidence of heart attacks. We're looking at, you know, issues with joint problems that end up happening, that, you know, we're getting younger and younger adults that are having to have knees and hip replacements. The weight wears and tears on that. In addition, we're looking at the depression and the sleep deprivation. And I know when Jessie had shared her study with me, one of the first things I implemented in my home is I made my son, my 10-year-old, cut off, you know, his little iTouch, his iPad, and everything else an hour before, and it made the world of difference. Then, you know, the next morning, even getting him up for school, and he felt rested. And so I was so amazed when I had actually read that study that Jessie had shared. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the easiest thing that I can implement in my home right away. That's not going to cost me anything. And then, as you know, what Joanna had talked about, when you are on that fixed budget and you look at, you know, buying fresh produce, I always buy produce that's in season, and then I freeze it. And so that way I'm able to have that for a longer period of time. But if not, I always buy frozen first. So those, you know, those type of things you can get at a fairly cheaper price. So just the little things like that. I know the CDC has a wonderful website on some tips. You know, looking at when you're eating out, how you're looking at your menu and your options, because now a lot of the convenience food places have got to list their calorie counts. So just looking at that when you're in the restaurant or you're there getting ready to order, looking at what's the better decision. And so a lot of the convenience foods are now, fast food places are now offering some healthier options. So it's kind of learning how you're going to eat this instead of this type of mentality.
Well, thank y'all for joining us. I think you've talked about some great stuff. Hopefully the parents out there have learned a lot today and can implement these things. Like you said, there's things that don't cost anything that you can implement, like taking the screens away from your kids and things like that. That's all we have for now on this episode of Your State of Health, but make sure to join us next time. Until then, I'm Kirsten May.